I suppose it is about the journey, my journey firstly, and then theirs. What my book has been for me has been certainly a release of many, many things that have happened in my life that I've never shared with anybody. By writing the book, I was crying for that 2-year-old infant. I was crying for the 10-year-old violated, and the teenager not just violated once, but many times. What I had actually lived through, what felt like 5 lifetimes of pain compared to just one. And not that I was comparing mine to other people, but I started to realise that I actually had a story there that was meant to get out there, was something that needed to be shared so people can understand, that, one person can live through so much and survive, triumph over those 5 lifetimes of pain. We were raised on a farm. We came from a very poor family, big family, 1 boy, 6 girls, so Dad worked very hard on the farm, and we hardly ever saw him, so Mum raised us basically. So I suppose I did lack that love for a father's love, you know what I mean? Like, again, remembering that, generations ago and my parents' generation, there was no outward showing of love. It was almost like a duty. The duties that you had to uphold, not only in a marriage, but also handed down from your church or religion and things like that. So women were taught to be submissive to their husbands. So there wasn't a lot around, women standing up for themselves or doing anything different than what was taught in the churches. So what was set back then or from my age group or from my generation is that most women were never told or that they could have a career. So basically what I was told is to marry and have children, which didn't really sit that well with me, but it was something that I had to sort of abide by in a way. It was the done thing for women to get married and have children. I didn't really think about what I wanted, and if I did, I sort of squashed it. I just put it to the back or pressed it down or pushed it down, because I felt, well, it's not about me. I'm not pleasing me. This is about pleasing other people. This is about making other people happy. So I used to love making other people happy on all different levels, I suppose. I found out 5 years ago that I was abused as a 2-year-old. Everything that's come from, all my decisions I've made from that, were decisions made unknowingly about what had happened to me at that young age. So my decisions were quite disastrous, and I kept repeating them over and over again. I kept making the same choices, not even understanding that. But I kept thinking that I wasn't worthy enough, or for a person to love me, I had to do what they told me to do. I always found that I had to be something for somebody, whether it be a wife, a girlfriend, lover, mother, sister, aunt, daughter. I found that things in my life always seemed to have me feeling that I needed to live up to the expectations of others. Things would only last a certain amount of time, and I found that even in relationships, I just couldn't get it to work. I felt that I was giving 120%, but I was getting more like 10% back. So you can only carry that for a certain length of time before all of a sudden you realise that this is just not working, this is not working for me. But you have to remember it was my choice going into a lot of those relationships, because I was always searching for love. I was always searching for outward validation. So here I was in a fairly new relationship, and falling pregnant was just ecstatic. I was ecstatic, I mean, I come from a big family, so it didn't matter whether the man was going to be there or not, because I was blessed with a child. This might have been my only opportunity of having a child. So, excuse me, I just took on the responsibility. I just threw myself almost into it. I think my son gave me the opportunity to escape for a while. I think, like I said, your children are all blessings, but I think mine was sent at certain times where they did take me away from, the choices that I'd made or the relationships that I'd been in. So it gave me a sense of just being for a little while. As soon as I stepped into another relationship, then it sort of brought back the same issues, I suppose. So I wasn't fixing anything, I was just band-aiding it in a sense. I was just putting a little wrap around it while I wasn't in a relationship. So, then all of a sudden when I went back into them, I still had the same issues there. Only now I had a child as well. So when I left my first husband, and that was quite abusive, physically in a sense, but more verbally and from an alcoholic point of view, I turned quite wild child in a sense, doing some things that I'm not proud of, that's for sure. But I met a guy who, again, that I didn't realise that was into drugs and alcohol so much. He started to stay away for days on end, started coming home whenever he wanted to, and basically doing whatever he wanted to do. So I remember this wasn't the first time that it had happened. This was definitely the worst time, I suppose. He followed me down to the bedroom. He threw me on the bed and he jumped on my stomach, like astride, a leg each side. And he was basically yelling at me at this time. He drew back his fist and he punched me in the face. He was quite a large man. He was well over 6 foot tall. I was basically, I suppose, just lying there in shock. Had this just happened, and why was this happening? He got off of me and he basically punched holes in walls and doors, and he kept walking around saying, that he had to hit something, otherwise he'd kill me. I lay there just very fearful because I didn't know what else to do. He took the keys and I still lay there as he basically screamed off down the road. And it wasn't long after that that I tried to take my own life with pills. And in a way it wasn't, I never ever actually wanted to ever kill myself. It was just a scream out for help. I needed help. I moved to Mackay, and I have a sister in Mackay, and I moved up there trying to perhaps start again. I've moved 56 times, so I've done a lot of restarting. And I felt that the move to Mackay would be good. I have a different energy. My sister was very supportive. I think what was more important is that I was really determined to change what I could do. I had always been successful in what I did, but now I really needed to step up, and mining was right there. So could I drive those trucks? I didn't really know. I went and got my heavy rigid license and I started from there, and when I got the job I was absolutely elated because I'd gone from a sole parent pension up to almost $90,000 a year on my first position in the mine, so I was excited. Working in the mines isn't an easy job. It's hard, it's vigorous, it's 12-hour shifts. You might only work for 4 days or 4 nights, but it's hard. You know, you're not just sitting in a truck and driving, it's a very dangerous environment. You've got to look at everything around you. You know, you've got other trucks, the weather, you know, the high walls could fall. There's a whole danger around actually driving the trucks. I was reversing my truck up and I couldn't hear the horn, and I waited, and I wasn't going that fast. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the excavator bucket was smashed down onto the headboard of my truck. It caused me such a jolt forward, and my head was already in the left position because I was reversing the truck, that I suppose I went into a form of shock. The excavator operator asked me, he called me on the two-way to see if I was okay. And I basically sort of said I didn't know. Oh, I was a slow learner, very slow. It took me a really big hit on the back of the head, obviously, to learn a lot of my lessons. I really look back now and I think how silly at times I was, that I couldn't see, I just could not see why I was doing that, why I was making those decisions, you know, over and over. Why couldn't I have changed something? You know, and in a way I thought I was making better decisions, but now I understand that I really didn't have the knowledge, I suppose, and it took that big accident that, you know, hit on the back of the head, so to say, that stopped me in my tracks. And with so much chronic pain, I started to think about my life. I had all this time to think about where I'd come from and where I was going. And now I was rendered useless. I had to stop. So it gave me a lot of time to think. The hurt had already been there for so many years. The accident just allowed it to be shown forward a little bit more. So I was not just hurting for myself and my injury. My heart started to feel hurt, and I started to feel these emotions around hurt, pain, suffering. You know, because I'd actually stopped long enough and I didn't have a choice anymore. I had to think about those things because it brought up all of these emotions. Being rendered useless is very difficult to deal with, so. I think, it's only been very new for me coming out of my experiences, so writing my book was basically the biggest step for me to start to release my story. Lots of my stories had never been told. I'd never shared them with anybody. So I've kept hurt in my body and pain for many years, sometimes almost 50 years. You know, when you start to release that, you know, even by whether it's talking to somebody or like myself writing the book, you find that it comes from every cell and every muscle in your body where it's been stored and kept for so long. I suppose from that accident, you know, I grew so much that the person that I see today doesn't resemble the person that I was, because I'm strong and I'm confident and I love who I am. I come from my heart and I care about others, but I love who I am and know that my strength, my story, that's what will help others. They have their journey. I can't do it for them. I can just help guide them and be a holding hand. If there's a book that's going to touch your heart, then it's Blonde Roots. If there's a book that you want to read, that you feel that you want to understand how a person can live their life and make the decisions that they make, and really sort of understand, I suppose, why that person makes those decisions, then please buy the book. You know, if you want to share it with your friends, your neighbours, your mother, your sisters, somebody who's feeling down, somebody that you don't feel that you can necessarily help because you're too close to the situation, then please buy the book. Share it. Share it with those people. We need more people standing up. We need more people ready to make changes, to help others. But we can only do that by starting to communicate. Yeah, my legacy. Oh, my Lord. When I talk about my legacy, I think of my children. You know, the changes that I have made in my life so that they have grown to be strong, independent. They love who they are. You know, it brings joy to my life to know that not only have I lived through what I've lived through, but I've been able to make those changes not only for my own children, but for generations to come.